Well, hello, my dear friends. Justyn Smith here, and I want to thank you so much for clicking play today. We find ourselves in Luke 14 with a great invitation. We're talking about how there is a master who has prepared a great celebration, and there is a command to go out and invite people to come in. But the ones who were initially invited have chosen that they're not going to come, and then that calls for reaching out to so many more of all types and strands that God may give us a picture here of the great invitation of everlasting life and the fellowship that He has created for us. Notice point number 1, many were called. Listen to the scriptures. One of them that sat at meat with Him heard these things. He said unto him, Blessed is he that shall eat bread in the kingdom of God. And then Jesus, said unto him, A certain man made a great supper and bade many, and sent his servant at supper time to say to them that were bidden, Come, for all things are now ready. So there is this great invitation to this supper. And Jesus is teaching in reference to the supper in the kingdom of God, as it said in verse 15, Blessed is he that shall eat bread in the kingdom of God. And so Jesus begins to give this great lesson, teaching them that not everyone who is bidden is going to come. Some have emphasized that this is referencing the greater understanding of how He came unto His own, and His own received Him not, the Jewish people, and the mixed multitudes then, the Gentiles that were then invited because of the Jews who did not respond. Either way, it is a message in general understanding that there is an invitation to a great supper in the kingdom of God that some are going to reject, that others are going to have the invitation extended to, and they are going to receive that invitation. Either way, I want to be one who receives that invitation, and by the grace of God in my life, I have decided to follow Jesus. I've decided to believe on Him. Notice what it says in our second point, the many who rejected the invitation. And of course, we are looking at those who have a land, those who have a lady, those who have luxury. I said it in the wrong order, but first of all, let's see the land. And they all with one consent began to make excuse. So the excuse is in verse 18, I have land, I can't. The first said unto him, I have bought a piece of ground, and I must needs go and see it. I pray thee, have me excused. Now really, he could have still went to the supper and then gone and seen the land, but that's not what he decides to do. Then it says in verse 19, the next excuse is over the luxuries in this life. I have bought 5 yoke of oxen. That is a lot. And I go to prove them. He spent a lot of money. He obviously had some affluence in this life, and now he's going to test them out. I pray thee, have me excused. Now, he could have waited till after the supper, but he did not in this illustration. And another said, I have married a wife, and therefore I cannot come. Then maybe a little bit of chuckling there as Jesus begins to give the illustration over the understanding of what one may note in life to be a man who is preoccupied by his wife or a man who is ordered around by his wife. I've married a wife, I cannot. And maybe at this point it's just the sincere relationship that is being enjoyed. I've just married, I cannot come. Either way, Jesus gives these 3 excuses that were mentioned by these 3 different people as to why they reject the invitation. Then that leads us to the master being upset. Notice verse 21, So that servant came, showed his lord those things, and the master of the house, being angry, said unto his servant, Go out quickly into the streets and lanes of the city, and bring in hither the poor, the maimed, and the halt, and the blind. There is a listing there of characters who had infirmities in this life, who are about to receive an invitation to those who are the most unlikely unlikely in this world to be invited to such a party, but yet the invitation is given to them nonetheless, and it's all because of the frustrations that the master had over those with land, those with luxuries, those with ladies who chose to turn down the invitation. They don't understand what's been prepared for them, which leads us to point 4. Everyone else is still invited. So the servant came, showed his lord these things, and the master of the house, being angry, said to his servant, Go out quickly into the streets and lanes of the city, and bring hither the poor, the maimed, the halt, and the blind. And the servant said, Lord, it is done as thou hast commanded, and yet there is room. And so as we see these teachings come alive, everyone else is invited. Doesn't matter who they are, what infirmities they have. Number 5, there is still room. And as we already saw in the verse, the servant said, Lord, it is done as thou hast commanded. Invitations have been extended. People have accepted. They are now coming. The blind, the halt, the maimed, they are on their way, and yet there is still room. They are filling your house, Lord. They are coming in. They are seated at the table, and yet we still have room. That leads us to number 6. It's time to compel people to come. The Lord said unto his servant, Go out into the highways and hedges, and compel them to come in, that they may, or that my house may be filled. And so we see the movement from the blind, the halt, the maimed, those with infirmities, to just go into the highways and the hedges, compelling people to come. When in the first, those with luxuries, those with land, those with the ladies, those that you thought had it all together, they rejected and they refused. But now there are people accepting the invitation. They're going out and seeking those to come in. And you have to assume that they had a full attendance list before, but that full attendance list turned things down. Now they're going out, they're compelling, they're bringing people in, but yet the house still is not full. And this is when you begin to understand the heart of the master. I want my house full. I want every seat taken up. I want you to do what you can to invite them to come in. And this is what leads to a 7th point now, the rejection that the master gives. For I say unto you that none of those men which were bidden shall taste of my supper. And he is referring to those that rejected, those that turned down. They're not going to taste of it. And as Jesus is speaking of this great invitation, we make so many parallels to understanding the kingdom of God, that there is messengers or are messengers in our life who take the time to reach out and give the invitation that invites us to the greatest supper, the greatest experience that one could ever know. But yet, because of distractions in this life, because of choices of something or someone that we have placed over the master, we choose to reject the great invitation. So as I'm preaching this message and teaching on this subject today, without going into great depth, the message is simple. There is an invitation for you to receive Jesus Christ. The question is, are you going to receive it, or are you going to turn it down? You see, things preoccupied the fellowship that the Master was extending. Don't let things detour you. Don't let things become your excuse. Don't let things distract you as to why you cannot turn to Jesus and accept the great message of salvation. He has prepared a place, and He doesn't want you to miss out on it. He doesn't want you to refuse it. He doesn't want you to reject it. He's done so much, you can understand why He would be angry, frustrated, a little upset with somebody rejecting with everything everything he has laid down that we would know the wonderful privilege of fellowshipping with him. Think about the blind, think about the maimed, think about the halt, think about those who had infirmities, think about how undeserving they knew themselves to be, but yet the Master still opened up his home to them. What a phenomenal thought that is as you and I come to Jesus today and rejoice in his great extension of a wonderful invitation to you and I who do not deserve it. Thank you so much, friends, for Click and Play. I hope that the message has been an encouragement and a challenge to you today. Thank you for being so faithful to listen in. God bless you and have a wonderful day.